Welcome to Common Off the Shelf, a podcast for the modern Contra and preppers. We discuss items, books, and topics from a common man's perspective, and our opinions are our own. Do not take any of these as hard facts, only as our interpretation and understanding in a flawed world of amazing products, price gouging, and cheap crap. Your results may vary, and your needs may differ depending on where you live and what you know. So don't take this as a blanket endorsement for all people in every situation. Just like camouflage, your abilities and needs will vary. This is a conversation about hypotheticals and fiction with these items, and never is an endorsement of the owner, author, or any actions. Lastly, we are just common men and not experts in the fields. If we get it wrong, great, tell us. If there is something better, let us know. I can't believe I had to say this, but some of you window lickers made this necessary. Welcome to another solo podcast. This is Gorilla Logistician, and today I will be reading out of TW-01, Baseline Training Manual with Joe Dolio. We're going to be starting off on page 9. I started this previously, and I apologize to Teddy Bear, who has told me that I need to express when I'm actually reading the book and when I'm not. So I will try to do a better job with that. So let's start off with the chapter 1. We just followed, if you went earlier, we got through the preface and basically why you should actually look at his book and to help people understand why the hell they should be preparing for anything. So, to chapter 1. Baseline Training Manual, chapter 1. What is preparedness and what are you preparing for? Be on your guard, stand firm, be courageous, be strong. 1 Corinthians 16:13. Have you ever watched one of those prepper TV shows? I swear that they intentionally seek out the craziest, most outrageous people that they can find to feature on those shows. Then they get a camera in their face and ask them, "What are you preparing for?" And they give some outlandish and crazy scenario. This is by design. Its purpose is to paint prepared people as crazy, because why would you need to prepare for anything in our modern society or immediate convenience and just-in-time logistics, right? The scenario that these people present range from plausible to outrageous. They say anything from a super eruption at Yellowstone, which is entirely possible, to an EMP strike from China, to an alien invasion. Some of it is pretty far out there. The funny thing is, despite their motivation or personal doomsday scenario, once they began discussing their preparations, they were nearly identical. All had provided for some food storage and then long-term food production, water procurement, shelter, and their own defense. This led to the development of my own philosophy of preparing for the second and third order effects. My philosophy is not to prepare for a specific scenario, but to be prepared for the second and third order effects of any scenario. I'm going to pause right there. I know it's real quickly. I haven't read too much, but I want to jump on 2 subjects that I think are extremely important. One, I talked to the guys who made the H2Go. I'm going to try to get the gentleman on here who is the founder of the device. And I think it's a really cool subject that we're talking about right now, and how Dolo has brought in most of its food prep, storage, water procurement, shelter, and the defense. One of the things a lot of people mess up more than anything is probably water preparation, because we're all like, oh, there's water everywhere. And while true, also isn't always as available as people think, especially without chemicals and there are other things in it. So hopefully we'll have him on sooner than later. I was talking to one of the people who works for him, and they were talking about the Dakin solution, and I kind of want to get him on with maybe Teddy and Rabbit and maybe even Mechmedic and have a discussion about this, because I think it's such an important item. Anyways, let's continue the reading. Let me explain. When a tornado hits, the destruction is the first order of effect. The destruction causes a power outage, which is the second order effect. The power outage means that stores are closed and food spoils, making a food shortage a third order effect. Another third order effect in this scenario is that you live in a place with municipal water, the pumps will lose power, and your water will not be safe to drink. So water storage becomes a third order effect. Pausing again, I was at a coffee shop, power went out, and while humorous, it was shocking to have people walk in, realize something was wrong, that there was no lights on, no fans running, no music, and asking to order stuff. In fact, we had somebody come in and say, "Hey, I ordered online a little while. Can I still get my stuff?" Luckily, he had ordered some pastries that were pre-made. They just need to be heated. And he's like, "That's fine. I'm going to take them home. I'll heat them there." But the reaction for most of the people were to stand there and look around at each other. First thing I did is pick up my cell phone, look at my cell phone. Okay, that's good. It's still on, which means it's not an EMP. I literally walked to the back because I'm pretty well known there to see if the power was out in the food area. I figured maybe they had separate breakers. The emergency lights were on as well, so I kind of figured it was a whole building situation. They were out, walked out to the front door, looked across the street at the gas station, and saw the gas station was not operational. Their lights were out, and a guy was standing there with the door open looking around as well. So I knew it was a bigger effect, and it was a couple hundred buildings that were affected. But realizing most of these people were walking in, having pulled into the area, no power, and still asking, well, can you make coffee? Can you make this? Can you make that? And don't know why these people can't think past the first order effect. I think Dolio makes a good point of this. Let's continue on. If you analyze any potential doomsday situation, you'll see the second and third order effects to you are always the same. You'll be without reliable power, reliable water, and reliable food sources. You will also not be in a position to rely on the law enforcement, fire rescue authorities, as they will be overtaxed already. So then, what is the thing we call preparedness? Preparedness means retaining the ability to sustain yourself free from any outside support or influence. This means the ability to feed yourself, obtain and purify water, protect yourself from the elements, defend yourself and your belongings, and have some quality of life. Yes, quality of life is important too. If this is preparedness, then the next logical question is, what are you preparing for? If I asked 20 people in preparedness, I'd get at least 10 different answers. Everyone, even me, has their own personal scenario that they prepare for. This important point, however, is that it doesn't matter one bit what you are preparing for as long as you take steps to ensure that you can obtain food, water, and shelter, and you maintain some capability to protect yourself and your supplies. It doesn't matter one bit why you develop this capability. I assure you that if you prepared to defend yourself against a Chinese invasion, but instead the power grid was hacked and the power is out, you are still in a good spot as far as being prepared. The key to preparedness is to not prepare for a specific situation, just prepare to be self-sufficient. Preparedness is all about self-reliance and personal freedom. Food has been used as a weapon for thousands of years, as has access to water. But not being prepared, you are exposing yourself to this risk. When we talk about preparedness, we're going to discuss it from a non-tech standpoint. That's an important distinction that many fail to make, and it could lead to a failure and survival situation. As a society, we are way too reliant on technology, and many in the preparedness community carry that over. As an example, let's talk about navigation briefly. Many people discuss the benefits of this GPS or that GPS, but the truth of the matter is that GPS navigation relies on the ground stations having electrical power to tell the satellites where they are in relation to the Earth. Once the ground stations lose power, the satellite position reporting will become unreliable, making navigation by GPS hit or miss. There was a Second Amendment rally in Richmond, Virginia on January 19, 2020. It brought people from all over the state and country to the state capitol to protest proposed draconian gun laws. Many people involved in preparedness attended. Many reported that they couldn't get a GPS signal at all during the rally, and after the event was over, The U.S. Navy reported that they had been running an exercise just offshore, and part of the exercise was jamming GPS signals. That event alone should illustrate my point. This doesn't mean I completely abandoned GPS. It means I also learned to navigate by paper, maps, and a high-quality compass. We do same thing with night vision. While night optics are good, the Model 1 Mark 1 eyeball you've had since birth never requires batteries. A super tactical rangefinder is nice if you have batteries, but the ability to estimate distance by sight or by mathematically figuring ranges using the height of an object is better. As we prepare, we will focus on skills over gear. Throughout the book, we're going to establish a baseline training level for general preparedness. In order to do that, now that we've defined what preparedness is, we need to define a few more terms and acronyms so that we're all on the same page. CB, Citizen Band Radio Service. EDC, Everyday Carry, items that you carry every day. EMP, Electromagnetic Pulse, a burst of electromagnetic energy that shorts out all ground electrical components at the instant it occurs. This is traditionally considered in the context of a nuclear attack, but there are other events that cause an EMP and that are also newly developed EMP weapons. The point is, an EMP will render most vehicles inoperable unless they are very old or lack electronic control modules. FCC, Federal Communications Commission. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. Great resource for information at www.ready.gov. Post-event, however, they may be a help or source of problems. They have plans that involve forced relocation, required registrations, and temporary firearm seizures. After Hurricane Katrina, 552 guns were seized under emergency orders, and owners had to submit a new background check to get their own guns back. They also forcibly relocated residents during Katrina. GMRS, General Mobile Radio Service. GPS, Global Positioning System. FRS, Family Radio Service. NBC, Nuclear Biological Chemical. This refers to an attack whether it is by a nation-state or a non-state actor such as ISIS or Al-Qaeda. Post-event, after some type of event or emergency that causes with a temporary or permanent WROL situation. Pre-event, normal everyday situation, before a without rule of law situation. S/A, situational awareness, maintaining an awareness of what's going on around you and understanding how you relate to your environment, such as where threats are. WROL, without rule of law. This is a situation where law enforcement services are non-existent. This could be a long-term situation, years in length, like we've seen in the Balkans, or very temporary, such as the nightly situation during the George Floyd riots, or the first week in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. The fact is, law enforcement has broken down and you are on your own. This doesn't mean we ourselves abandon our civilization. God is indeed still watching. It just means that you cannot count on rescue or support from traditional services. I find the term more realistic that those who say things like SHTF or, I can never say this one, the end of the world as we know it. To be honest with you, I like his, and coming off the book, I think that's a great point, not only on the GPS factors. I think the without rule of law is a good point as well. And we forget that nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons have been used before. Not just ISIS and Al-Qaeda, but we saw this in Japan many years ago. And a lot of people forget that one. Last little part on this is page 14, it's in chapter 1. Baseline standard. Decide what you are preparing for. Commit to learning skills over just buying gear. So, my little key takeaway on all this is he sets you up to understand that preparedness isn't preparing for the Chinese. It's not preparing for, and I'm going to make this in jest, the Hitler King Trump guy taking over. To be fair, we need to worry about that regardless of whoever's in office. It's the whole point of the Second Amendment. You really want to get down into it. And I'm very happy that some of the leftists have finally figured that out. I'm sure that they'll have amnesia the moment Trump is out of office and they put somebody else in. But let's continue on. I'm going to go to page 15, and this is chapter 2, General Awareness Skills. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27:12. Scenario 1. John is prepared and trained. He's got everything staged and ready. Then there was an event and the power has been out for 3 weeks. People are starting to riot and panic over food shortages, so John decides to leave the area. He packs the car at night to avoid anyone seeing, and he loads up the family and moves out at first light. All goes well leaving the neighborhood, but as soon as John turns onto the main road leading out of the suburb, there is a checkpoint. John pulls up. Like the good citizen he is, the police manning the checkpoint then seize his firearms because although he's transporting them lawfully, they've been temporarily banned for safety. They also seize his excess food under the Defense Production Act because they feel that he is hoarding, which is prohibited under the DPA. They take John's excess gasoline in 5-gallon cans for the same reason. They then arrest John on felony charges of violating the Defense Production Act. It's a 1-year felony. So, talk off subject for a second. This is one of the big reasons why I know Chris Weatherman, aka Angry American, absolutely does not trust Homeland Security. I think this is a good reason why you should really look into some of this stuff. We probably will never fix this situation in our lives, but honestly, the Firearms Policy Coalition really makes me happy that we've drawn back a lot of the bad laws and forced them off the books. And I wish somebody would look at this too, and I don't think they will, because it doesn't affect us until it affects us, and that's what was happening with guns, so it finally got fixed. All right, continuing on. Page 16, Scenario 2. Susie is on the way to work and steps into the local gas station for her usual cup of coffee. She gets a text and looks down to read it while preparing her coffee. As she turns towards the cash register with her phone in her hand, she sees the armed robber spin towards her, and the last thing Susie sees is a flash. Both of these scenarios are plausible. Both could have turned out much differently if John and Susie had been aware and had done some basic planning. Area study. The first step to increase awareness is conducting an area study. Actually, you'll need to conduct several area studies, one for every area that you frequent. First, begin with your immediate area. Your neighborhood is your innermost circle of defense, and you will work outward from there. Make a sketch of your house, showing all rooms, doors, and windows, all details. It doesn't need to be perfectly to scale, but you will be using it to analyze your risk and develop your defensive and security plan. Once you've made a sketch of your house, make a second sketch of your yard, including every feature. Once you've done this, analyze your sketches, both the house and the yard, and list the 3 or 4 most likely avenues of approach, or ways in which someone could approach and attack your house. Develop a strategy to counteract each of these. For example, breaking in the front door could be counteracted with the addition of a deadbolt, or post-event survival, a locking bar. A large window could be defended, preventing with bars or locks, and post-event with wood panels or steel plates. From the yard issue, you might consider fencing or gates, lighting or cameras. In a post-event situation, lighting and cameras may not work, so secondary plans may have to be made, like thorny plants or removing all brush to clear the line of sight. Physical barriers are always superior to technology-based solutions, like alarms and cameras, because our entire premise is a collapse without power. Remember, power outages are always a second order of effect in most scenarios, third orders in others. When analyzing these areas, look at them from the attacker's mindset, not the defender's. In other words, consider how you might enter the house or yard if you were intent on not being seen. Next, either get an aerial view of your immediate neighborhood or sketch it out. It's pretty simple to print off an aerial view now, pre-event. Look at the neighborhood and make a few notes. How could someone from outside enter the neighborhood normally? How can you get out normally? Identify at least 2 routes. How could someone who didn't want to be seen enter the neighborhood? Are there woods, streams, paths? How could you leave the neighborhood unseen on foot if you needed to? Area that any houses that are known trouble houses. What about known safe havens? People known to be friendly or willing to help. Is there any critical infrastructure in the neighborhood, such as a utility transformer, switching station, gas line pump stations, or sewer outlet pipes? Are there any businesses in the neighborhood or bordering it that may draw looters or crowds? Hospital, drugstore, gas station, grocery. All of these areas should have notes made in your area study as areas to watch. Consider these issues from a pre-event security standpoint and a post-event standpoint. Pre-event, I may just be aware of certain issues, but post-event, I might convince my neighbors that we need to block off a road with cars or set up an observation post overlooking the stream that people might use to sneak into the neighborhood. Put the information into a written format and save it. A great tool and reference for this is listed in the resources section of Sheep No More book and workbooks by Jonathan T. Gillum. I'm going to pause right here. We are working on area studies on the church. I'm doing it a little bit differently. I'm using Nick Meacher's book to kind of promote the idea of an area study without going too militant like this one is. I don't think this is too militant personally, and I think most of the listeners will agree with this. I have not taken a look at Sheep No More. That's an interesting book that I'll have to pop up and see what's going on. I think Mark Shelby also has a book on area studies. It's very deep and involved, so it may be something of interest for you guys as well. I think it's a little more than what needs to be done, and I think this book has a better reference point for an introductory to it, and I actually might switch over to this when I'm talking about it. Continuing on about mid-level on page 18. You can get paper maps for free from your city, township, or county, usually at the clerk's office. The maps they give you are usually more detailed than ones that you can buy. Some of them even go so far as to list sewer drains and power lines, which is helpful for our purposes. I've even contacted clerk's office several states away and requested free maps, and I've never had anyone say no. I say several copies because at least one is going to get marked up during your area study. I generally use a second map for day-to-day use, keeping a local map of wherever I'm at the day in my battle board. More on that later. For your home as well as any other location you do this for, find out where the nearest police station, nearest fire station, and nearest emergency room are. Notice I said emergency room and not urgent care. In a post-event situation, the urgent care will most likely be closed. When researching the emergency room, find out what level trauma center it is. This is vital because a level 1 trauma center can provide all care. Anything below that can initiate care. In a post-event situation, you don't want to be waiting in a level 3 center for an air ambulance that may never come to finish treating your traumatic amputation or tension pneumothorax sucking chest wound. I'm going to leave that in there because sometimes I look at words and it blows my mind and I forget how to say them. And I think that's kind of funny. I really love that he talks about level 1 trauma care. Some of you guys aren't going to be nearby that, and you may have to go to level 2 or level 3. Keep that in mind and also find out where that level 1 is. Nick Meacher has a really good book that I'm using as reference material and filling out in the same process for my small family. And knowing where those hospitals are very important, the distances and even the GPS coordinates. I know we just talked about how the GPS coordinates may be dead, but it's still something you should know, especially if you get a hold of a GPS that doesn't have the map system on it, like the small E-Trex from back in the day and the military versions that were basically fat wristwatches. All right, continuing on. Once you've determined where they are, mark them clearly on your paper map and list the address nearest cross streets and phone numbers in written emergency plans. The address is necessary because post-event, the phones may be down and you may have to walk or drive casualties to be treated. It's important to plot these on paper because post-event there are also locations that will draw people and usually very upset people. They are to be avoided post-event at all costs unless absolutely necessary, to include going out of your way to avoid them while en route elsewhere. Listing the physical address and plotting a local fire station might seem excessive because you just go to the hospital if you needed care. The reason you need it is that if you are seriously injured and need help, a fire station generally has paramedics or EMTs on staff 24 hours a day, and you can get started there quickly. Post-event, they are also likely to be guarded either by police or troops, and you could seek assistance from them as well. From a security standpoint, though, remember that ambulances contain drugs and may draw the worst kind of attention. When we conduct a plan, we use the PACE model: primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency, which spells out PACE. With that in mind, analyze your local map and develop your routes out of your immediate area for emergency use. Do this before an event happens so that you have a plan. You can react quickly if you already know what to do. That's the entire premise of preparedness. There are a few vital points about route planning. First, you have to understand the purpose of the interstate highway system. Originally called the Interstate of Defense Highway System, the real purpose of the system is the movement of federal troops and supplies in an emergency, hence the controlled access entrances that can be blocked in an emergency. Also, in an emergency, the general population will flock to them. Any route out of the area you plan should avoid highways. They are too easy to block. They will either be blocked by traffic or government forces, and they are ripe grounds for an ambush by those intent on doing harm. We already experience freeway shootings, and we aren't even in a post-event situation yet. Use secondary roads while planning routes. Plan also to cross under and over freeways away from the exit and entrance ramps. The reason for that is that if there is a checkpoint to get on the highway, the traffic back up it causes will block your route. Plan to cross trunk lines, which are usually state-numbered highways or major roads away from major intersections to avoid getting caught in a traffic situation. Plan your routes to avoid trouble areas. In a ROL situation, that's WROL, you don't want to be passing police stations, hospitals, shopping centers, and pharmacies. These will be areas that looting will occur or panicked people will be gathering. Plan for your trip to take far longer than during normal times. Identify a safe haven near the route. I say near the route because a safe haven would be a fire station, police station, or hospital that you should be avoiding, but you should always know where the nearest one is. Once you've identified a plan and planned your route, drive them at various times of day because a road can be empty during the day but lined with cars at night. After the plans are finalized, drive them every few months in case they need to be changed. I live in a temperate region, so some routes that I would in use in the summer, I would avoid in the winter. The next step in your area study is gathering information on local threats. Your local emergency management agency, whether city, state, or county, can generally provide information on what the most likely local weather and natural hazards are. The next step in your area study is gathering information on local threats. Your local emergency management agency, whether city, state, or county, can generally provide information on what the most likely local weather and natural hazards are. Learn where your local power is generated and where the water is treated. These will help you understand how long they'll take to fix if something happens. As a side note, once you learn how your water is treated, you may choose to switch entirely to bottled water. Your local police department most likely provides a local crime map. Monitor this daily or weekly, depending on how often they update their stats. Sign up for the services like Everbridge, which provides you with text and email alerts from any law enforcement or emergency services that you ask it to, so that you can have daily situational awareness. Use social media and local news sites to identify the people and groups who are involved in local protest activity and start monitoring them daily. You could avoid driving right into a protest by remaining aware to their activities. Sign up for alerts from your local road commission to know ahead of time about road closures. Once you've gathered all the information, begin a daily intelligence checkup, checking local weather, never more than the 72-hour forecast, local social media and news sites, and any alerts you've received. This will help you be more aware of the local situation. This is a brief discussion on a vast topic, and there are more resources in the resources section to help you with area study. This is page 22, and I'm going to break this up into a little bit more because we're going to go into situational awareness, and I think that's a better topic to add to another podcast. I really love this. I like what he's done here. I agree with him on checking daily stuff. Don't go overboard with this, but what I would recommend, which he hasn't put in here yet, is get your local neighbors interested in this information, maybe church members, whatever else, and have them look and have them sign up. And then you guys just, hey, I saw this is going on, whatever else. Situational awareness doesn't mean that you walk out as a lone wolf and maneuver around. Now, you should be paying attention just like the lady with the coffee shop getting shot, but you should have a community looking around just like a fire team would and doing these activities on more of a broad spectrum. Maybe somebody doesn't check the weather every day, but maybe you do because you work outside. I work outside, so I check the weather a lot, and I tell my fiance what's going on, and she dresses accordingly. But that's what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be just you. If you have somebody in law enforcement that's in your group, they can keep track of that and keep you updated on what you need to know. Anyways, Joe Dolio's book, can't stress it enough, really good resource. And I hate that I've already read this and I'm now rereading it and seeing things that would make my life a lot easier helping other people. And I'm sure as I go through this book, I'm going to find other stuff. His book on, I think it's TW-05, the medical book. Fiance has gone through it, absolutely loves it, thinks it's a great intro, getting yourself involved, and I think you should look into that too. He's got sections on medical in here and other things that we will be reading through, and I will be going through this a little bit more later. Hope you guys enjoyed this little podcast by myself. Have a good night.